For 10,000 years, the deepest lake in America held perfectly still. Now, in the last 3 years alone, the ground beneath it has shaken 23 times. The same caldera that used to go silent for an entire decade between tremors is now logging quake after quake after quake. All of them caught by a brand new seismic network that was switched on for one reason: to catch exactly this. The strongest measured magnitude, 1.8. Tiny. Almost nothing. And that is precisely what should make your skin crawl. Because a sleeping giant does not need to roar to wake up. It only needs to start breathing. Less than 1 kilometer west of where tourists stand at the rim runs a fault capable of a magnitude 7.25 earthquake. Half a kilometer straight down, the floor of the lake is still warm. Below it sits the buried heart of a volcano that erupted with 40 to 50 times the force of Mount St. Helens. 711,340 Americans sit inside its mottled ash zone. 670,000 visitors walked its rim last year. And this summer, the National Park Service is locking the only trail to the water shut, and it is not reopening until 2029. The official alert level still reads green. But here is the detail that tells the real story. That number, 23, is the one nobody is saying out loud. Because for as long as instruments have listened to this mountain, the rule was simple: 0 to 1 earthquake per decade within 6 miles of the volcano. Per decade. Now, the count climbs in a single year. None of them are large. Every one of them sits squarely inside what the U.S. Geological Survey calls normal background. But normal background at Crater Lake used to mean a flat line for 10 years at a stretch. The line is no longer flat. And the only reason anyone can see it all is that the Cascades Volcano Observatory finally wired the caldera with a network of 4 seismometers, sensitive enough to feel a tremor smaller than a passing truck. They built the ears. The mountains started whispering. Those are 2 different facts, and stacking them together is what turns a shrug into a question you cannot put down. Here is what almost no coverage has connected. The lake is not just shaking. It is warm. More than 400 meters down, in total darkness, the floor of Crater Lake leaks hydrothermal fluid into 2 vent fields, pools the researchers named Leo's Bath and Palisades Point. In 2022, a research team measured those fluids at up to 10.22 degrees Celsius against an ambient water temperature of 3.6 degrees. That is real heat rising off a magma system still cooling beneath the basin, dragging iron and sulfur up with it. Entire colonies of bacteria live down there in the dark, clustered on the warm scar of the explosion that built this place. The volcano that textbooks call extinct is feeding life at the bottom of its own crater. That is not a dead mountain. That is a mountain holding its breath. Now widen the frame, because the geology is worse than the trail report. West of the caldera runs the West Klamath Lake Fault Zone, a system of faults stretching as much as 70 kilometers in aggregate, mapped straight through the national park. One strand of it, the Annie Spring Fault, passes less than 1 kilometer from Rim Village, from the gift shop, from the overlook where visitors stand and take photographs. The United States Geological Survey has assessed that this fault system can produce a tectonic earthquake as large as magnitude 7.25. The recurrence interval is unknown, but is estimated to fall somewhere between 3,000 and 10,000 years. And no one can tell you where in that window we are standing right now. And the timing of what comes next is almost too clean. This summer, the Cleetwood Cove Trail closes. It is the only legal route from the rim down to the water. A 1.1-mile path carved into a cliff face. The launch point for every boat tour. The single place a human being can touch the surface of a lake. The Park Service says the closure is structural, and the documents back that up. The trail tread is crumbling. The retaining walls are undercut. High-risk rockfall zones line the descent. The marina dock failed in 2016. So crews will close it for the summer of 2026, keep it shut through 2027 and 2028, and reopen it in 2029 if everything holds. 3 full years. No swimming. No boats. No one at the waterline. The rim stays open. The water does not. This is the part that rewrites the textbooks. Mount Mazama did not die in a lava flow. It died in a collapse, a climactic eruption 40 to 50 times the size of Mount St. Helens, after which the entire summit fell into the empty magma chamber below and left an 8 by 10 kilometer hole more than a kilometer deep. The hole filled with rain and snowmelt over centuries until it became the lake. The last eruption was roughly 4,800 years ago when a small dome pushed up on the flank of Wizard Island. And here is the line that should stop you cold. The Klamath people carry a story about Leo of the underworld and Skell of the sky, a battle that tore the mountain apart and buried it in fire. Geologists have matched that story beat for beat to the eruption sequence preserved in the rock. The oral tradition has been carried unbroken for roughly 380 generations. 380 generations of people telling their children exactly what this mountain did, so that no one would ever forget what it can do again. So picture the rim this summer. A ranger walks down to the trailhead, swings a gate across the path, and clicks a padlock shut. Behind it, the trail to the water goes quiet for 3 years. Below the failed dock, the boat launch sits empty over the clearest water in the world. And 6 miles down and across, a seismometer the size of a coffee can scratches one more small line onto a page that used to stay blank for a decade. What happens next is genuinely unknown, and the experts are careful to say so. The quakes are small. The alert is green. Nothing in the data says an eruption is coming. But the honest version is harder to sit with. We do not have a long record here. The instruments are new. We are watching a system stir for the first time with tools good enough to see it. And we do not yet know what its normal even is. So what is the line between a mountain settling and a mountain waking? How many small quakes is too many before someone changes the color of that map? And why does the only path to the water get sealed for 3 years in the exact season the ground will not stop moving? The deepest lake in America is sitting on the buried heart of a volcano that erased its own summit, inside a memory 380 generations long. The floor is still warm. The net is recording. The fault is loaded. And right now, tonight, beneath 1,900 feet of the clearest water on the continent, the ground under Crater Lake is still shaking.